Hi, everyone. Danny Moses, host of the On the Tape podcast. No podcast this week as we are taking our own bye week. But just as a housekeeping item, Ivy Zelman will be coming on next week to talk about all things housing. Nobody better than her. And then the following week, I'm bringing back Luke Gromen. And if you are not subscribed to Forest for the Trees, you are doing it wrong. I know Luke is going to give his updated thoughts on gold, as well as other important macro factors out there like U.S. debt and Treasury yields. We are approaching the halfway point for third quarter earnings and the NFL football season. And this weekend is also the Breeders' Cup Classic. But before I get to all that, just want to go over a few things. So as we sit here today on the eve of what will certainly be another rate cut from the Fed, the government is still shut down. And it definitely appears I'm going to lose my Kalshi prediction that I made 2 weeks ago that the government would open by this Friday. So that's 30 days is gone. It looks like the break even is now 45 days. So we're talking mid-November now before the government's going to open. I know they're finding a way to pay certain federal employees, but this is getting ridiculous. And today, as of today, air traffic controllers and TSA agents will miss a full paycheck. And on November 1st, there will begin to be a real impact as 40 million people are at risk of losing food benefits. And people will also see their 2026 healthcare premiums go up, or they're going to see what they're going to be come January 1st. Markets have largely ignored the shutdown as there's optimism for a trade deal with China, or at least not a trade war, and the fact that the stock market continues to move higher on decent earnings and an expected rate cut tomorrow. It does feel like the markets are priced to perfection at the moment, and it wouldn't take much for a breather, in my opinion. Meanwhile, we are seeing job losses on both ends of the spectrum. Technology companies that are spending billions on AI are looking for savings, as well as small and mid-sized private companies that are facing business-related issues, such as tariffs that are forced to cut staff. Seasonally, the end of the year tends to be a good time to own stocks. But if this market has shown you anything, it's how unpredictable it can be, just like the NFL, which is a good lead-in to my Week 9 picks. Once again, last week I go 1-1. The Bills did smoke the Panthers, but the Steelers fell apart in the Aaron Rodgers revenge game versus the Packers. That makes me 10-1, and I have 2 picks this week and a bonus Breeders' Cup Classic pick. All right, Bills home versus Chiefs, getting 2.5 points. Last meeting was last year's playoffs in Kansas City, and KC beat the Bills by 3 in another thriller. But 2 months before that, the Bills beat the Chiefs at home 30-21. Yes, the Chiefs are playing better, but they've had 3 straight home games and beaten 2 bad teams in the last few weeks, the Raiders and a Commanders team without Jaden Daniels. The Bills demolished the Panthers and are only getting healthier. Back home now for the first time since the October 5th loss to the Patriots. Give me the Bills plus 2.5. Lions off of a bye week. They've won their last 2 regular season games off of a bye, and last year crushed the Cowboys off a bye week. They're back home versus the Vikings. Vikings look really lost. Carson Wentz is now out for the year. The return of J.J. McCarthy, I don't buy it. I expect the Lions to romp the Vikings, lay the 8.5. Okay, Breeders' Cup weekend. There are 14 races over Friday and Saturday, with the main attraction, the Classic, being run this Saturday at 6:25 p.m. Eastern time, to be exact. Back again at Del Mar. Reminder, this is 1.25 miles on the dirt for horses that are 3 years old and older. That's what makes this race so interesting. 10 horses in the race, some great 4-year-olds in the race, including Sierra Leone, the 7-horse, who won last year in the Classic on the same track. Fierceness, the 1-horse, who ran and won on this track in the Pacific Classic at this distance at the end of August. And Mindframe, the 8-horse, who beat Sierra Leone earlier this year at a race at Churchill, but I will note that that was 1 1/8 and has struggled at the 1.25 distance. You then have the 2 best 2-year-olds in the world, with Sovereignty, the 6-horse, currently at 6-5, who won the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont, and Journalism, who won the Preakness and came in second to Sovereignty in both the Derby and the Belmont. That would be the 9-horse. Journalism most recently lost to Fierceness in the Pacific classes as well. So as of right now, big thing is that Sovereignty has spiked to small fever. So as you sit here on Tuesday afternoon, might not run. So if he comes out, then everybody's odds are obviously going to drop, because this, as you know, is a pari-mutuel, and you can't really bet fixed odds unless you're on Betfair in the UK. And if you were the Betfair in UK right now, I would be taking Sierra Leone. Horse is currently 8-1. I do expect it to probably drop to 4-1 if Sovereignty is out, but I would bet him to win in place. I would also like the Exacta box, which is, I would do a 1, 6, 7, 9. Remember, if Sovereignty is a 6-horse, so if it drops out, just have the 1, 7, and 9. And then the trifecta box, 1, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again, the 6 drops, it'll be 1, 7, 8, 9. All right. So with that, I'll be back next week for a new episode of On the Tape with Ivy Zelman. And please go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. You should see the link below. Be back next week.